Imagine. This is a story you can fall asleep to. In fact, that's exactly what this video is made for. Whether you drift off in 5 minutes or stay with us for the full 2 hours, you're exactly where you need to be. There's no test tomorrow. No need to remember everything. Just relax and let this ancient mystery unfold. We're going to explore something incredible tonight. A Bible that most people have never heard of. A Bible with 81 books instead of 66. A Bible that tells stories about what happened before the beginning, before Adam, before Eve, even before the Garden of Eden. Can you imagine that? What existed before the very first page of Genesis? Tonight, you'll find out. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to stay awake for all of it. This story will be here, playing softly, whether your eyes are open or closed. Some of you will hear the whole thing. Some of you will drift away into peaceful dreams halfway through. Both are perfect. So take a deep breath in, hold it. Now let it out slowly. One more time. Breathe in and out. Good. Now let's begin our journey into the Ethiopian Bible and the secrets it has protected for over 2,000 years. Chapter 1. The Hidden Bible that changed everything. Picture this. It's the year 1768. A Scottish explorer named James Bruce is traveling through the mountains of Ethiopia. He's hot, tired, and far from home. But then, in an ancient monastery perched high on a cliff, he discovers something that will shake the Christian world. Books. Old books. Really old books. But these aren't just any books. These are books that were supposed to be lost forever. Books that the church councils of Europe decided shouldn't exist. Books that tell a completely different story about creation, angels, and the very beginning of everything. James Bruce couldn't believe what he was holding. The monks treated these books like treasure. They kept them wrapped in cloth, locked in special rooms, guarded day and night. Why? Because these books contained stories that had been banned in Europe over 1,000 years earlier. The Ethiopian Bible, called the Mashafa Kedos in their ancient language, has 81 books. Let that sink in for a moment. The Bible you might have seen in hotels or churches has 66 books. The Catholic Bible has 73, but the Ethiopian Bible has 81. That's 15 more books than most Bibles. 15 entire books of stories, prophecies, and histories that most Christians have never read. Never even heard of. What's in those extra books? Well, that's what we're going to explore tonight. But here's the first big question that might make you think differently about everything. If these books were part of the original Bible, if they were sacred to the earliest Christians, then who decided to remove them? And more importantly, why? Think about it this way. Imagine you have a family photo album with 81 pictures. Now imagine someone comes along and says, actually, you can only keep 66 of those pictures. The other 15 don't fit the story we want to tell. Wouldn't you wonder what was in those 15 pictures? Wouldn't you want to know what they were trying to hide? The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is one of the oldest Christian churches in the world. They've been practicing Christianity since around 330 AD. That's less than 300 years after Jesus walked the earth. These weren't people who came to Christianity late. They were some of the first believers, and they never removed those books. While Europe was having church councils and debates about which books should be official, the Ethiopians just kept all of them. They said, "These books have been sacred to us for centuries. We're not removing them just because someone in Rome or Constantinople says so." Can you imagine the courage that took to stand alone, separated by mountains and distance, and say, "We know what's true, and we're keeping it." The Ethiopian Bible includes books like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Apocalypse of Baruch. If those names sound unfamiliar, that's exactly the point. These books were deliberately left out of the Bibles that most of the world uses today. But here's what's really interesting. When archaeologists found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, guess what they discovered? Fragments of the Book of Enoch, fragments of Jubilees. These books that had been dismissed as fake or unreliable for over 1,000 years were suddenly proven to be ancient, real, original. The Dead Sea Scrolls are from around 200 BC to 100 AD. That means the Book of Enoch was being read and copied by Jewish communities at the exact same time that Jesus was alive, maybe even by Jesus himself. So why did the church councils remove these books? The official reason was that they contained strange teachings. Teachings about angels that seemed too detailed. Stories about creation that were too mysterious. Prophecies that were too specific. But could there be another reason? What if these books contained information that gave people too much knowledge, too much direct connection to the divine, without needing the church as a middleman? Before we dive deeper into what these hidden books actually say, I want you to do something for me. If you're enjoying this journey into hidden history, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about uncovering the stories that got buried, the truths that were hidden. And there's so much more to explore together. And here's something to think about as we move to the next chapter. If 15 books were removed from the Bible, what other stories have been erased from history? What other truths are waiting in dusty monasteries, forgotten libraries, and ancient caves? Coming up next, we're going to open those forbidden books and see exactly what the church didn't want you to read. The stories are more amazing than you can imagine. Chapter 2. The mysterious books they didn't want you to read. Let's start with the most famous of the banned books, the Book of Enoch. Now you might be thinking, who is Enoch? Great question. In the regular Bible, Enoch gets exactly 5 verses. 5. That's it. Genesis mentions him briefly. It says Enoch walked with God, and then he was no more, because God took him away. That's mysterious, right? What does it mean that God took him away? Where did he go? What did he see? The Book of Enoch answers all of that, and the answers are stunning. According to this ancient text, Enoch didn't die like other people. Instead, angels came down from heaven and took him on a tour. Not just of one heaven, not 2, but 7 different heavens, each one more amazing than the last, each one filled with things that human eyes weren't supposed to see. Enoch describes rivers of fire, mountains made of precious stones, angels as tall as mountains, creatures with wings covering their entire bodies, singing songs that never end. He talks about storehouses where snow is kept, chambers where lightning is stored, and places where the stars go to rest when they're not shining in the sky. But here's where it gets really interesting. Enoch also describes the angels who rebelled against God. Not just one angel, like we usually hear about, but 200 angels. They had names, ranks, and specific jobs before they fell. Their leader was named Semjaza. He convinced 200 other angels to leave their positions in heaven and come down to earth. Why? Because they saw human women and found them beautiful. They wanted to experience physical life. They wanted to have families. They wanted to be more than just spirits. So they came down. They took human wives, and they had children. But these weren't normal children. The Book of Enoch calls them Nephilim, giants, beings that were half angel, half human. And according to the book, these giants weren't gentle. They were violent, destructive, and hungry. They ate everything: animals, plants, and eventually, people. The Nephilim threw the whole world into chaos. And that's when God decided to send the Great Flood. Not just as punishment, but as a reset button. The world had become corrupted by this mixing of heaven and earth, and it needed to be washed clean. Now here's the controversial question. Is this just mythology? Or could there be truth hidden in this story? Think about this. Nearly every ancient culture on Earth has stories about giants. The Greeks had their Titans. The Norse had their Jotnar. Native American tribes have legends of giant cannibals. The Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, powerful beings who came from the sky. Are all of these cultures just making up the same story independently? Or were they all remembering the same real event, just in different languages and with different names? The Book of Enoch also reveals something else that was considered too dangerous. The fallen angels didn't just come to earth and have families. They also taught humans secrets, forbidden knowledge. One angel taught humans how to make weapons and armor. Another taught astrology and the signs of the earth. Another taught spells and enchantments. Another taught how to read the stars and predict the future. The book suggests that much of human technology, magic, and knowledge didn't come from slow human progress. It came from angels who broke the rules and shared heaven's secrets. Does that change how you think about human history? What if our sudden leap from primitive tribes to building cities and creating writing wasn't entirely natural? What if we had help? Now let's talk about the Book of Jubilees. This book retells the story of Genesis and Exodus, but with way more detail. It's like watching the director's cut of a movie after you've only seen the theatrical version. The Book of Jubilees gives specific dates for everything, not just in the beginning, but exact years, months, and days. It describes a calendar system that the Ethiopians still use in their church today. A calendar that tracks both solar years and spiritual cycles. According to Jubilees, creation didn't happen in 7 random days. It happened according to a perfect pattern, a divine blueprint. And that pattern keeps repeating throughout all of history. Every 49 years is a Jubilee cycle. After 7 Jubilee cycles comes a bigger reset. Everything operates according to mathematical perfection. But here's what really bothered the church councils. The Book of Jubilees says that certain laws and festivals existed before Moses, before the 10 Commandments. These spiritual practices were written into creation itself, according to the book. They weren't invented by humans. They were eternal. That challenged the church's authority. If sacred knowledge existed before Scripture, before priests, before temples, then where did that knowledge come from? And more importantly, who else might have access to it? The Book of Jubilees also tells us more about Adam and Eve. According to this text, they didn't immediately fall into sin. They spent years in the Garden of Eden first. 7 years to be exact. 7 years of learning from angels, walking with God, and understanding the true nature of reality. Only after all that time and knowledge did the serpent finally succeed in tempting them. And even then, the book suggests it wasn't just about eating fruit. It was about trying to access knowledge in the wrong way, at the wrong time. There's another banned book called the Apocalypse of Baruch. This one is even more mysterious. Baruch was the scribe who worked with the prophet Jeremiah. In this book, Baruch has visions about the end of the world, about what happens to souls after death, and about the different levels of heaven. He describes a place where the souls of the righteous wait before the resurrection, a beautiful garden filled with light. But he also describes where the souls of the wicked go, a dark place, but not the fire and brimstone you might expect. Instead, it's described as a place of emptiness, of being cut off from the presence of God, eternal loneliness. These are just 3 of the 15 extra books in the Ethiopian Bible. Each one adds layers to the story you thought you knew. Each one challenges simple answers. If you're starting to see the Bible in a completely new way, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these hidden stories. And trust me, we're just getting started, because now we need to ask the biggest question of all. If all of these books talk about creation, angels, and the beginning of everything, there's one mystery they all point to. What existed before the beginning, before Genesis, before the first day? In the next chapter, we're going to explore the most mind-bending concept in the Ethiopian Bible. The idea that there was a creation before our creation, a world before our world, and it changes everything. Chapter 3. Before Adam, the secret first creation. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine nothing. Not darkness, not empty space, not silence, just nothing. That's impossible, isn't it? Your mind can't picture true nothingness. It keeps adding something, a background, a feeling, a sense of existing. Now here's the question. When the Bible says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," what was there before that beginning? Most people have never thought about it. They just accept that creation is where the story starts. But the Ethiopian Bible, especially in the writings of Enoch and Jubilees, tells us something shocking. There was something before the beginning. God didn't start with Adam and Eve. He didn't start with the earth. He didn't even start with matter, with physical things you can touch. He started with light, pure light, conscious light, light that could think, feel, and worship. The Ethiopian texts describe something called the first creation. This wasn't the creation in Genesis. This was something that happened before time itself existed, before there were days to count, before anything physical was made. In the first creation, God made spiritual beings, not angels exactly, though angels were part of it. These were conscious forms made entirely of light and energy. They didn't have bodies. They didn't need to eat or sleep. They existed in a state of pure awareness, living in the direct presence of God. Think of it like this. Imagine if consciousness could exist without a brain, if awareness could happen without eyes to see or ears to hear. That's what these first beings were like. Pure mind, pure spirit. The Book of Enoch describes this pre-creation world in beautiful detail. It talks about the throne of God, surrounded by fire that doesn't burn. Around the throne were creatures with 6 wings, covering themselves and singing without stopping. Holy, 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 in voices that sound like thunder and whispers at the same time. But these weren't just mindless robots programmed to worship. According to the Ethiopian understanding, these beings had free will, real choice. They could decide to love God and serve His purposes, or they could choose something else. And that freedom is what led to the first disaster in all of history. A disaster that happened before humans even existed. In this first creation, there was a being of incredible beauty and power. The Ethiopian texts give him different names, but the most common is Satanael. That name means the blindness of God, or the secret of God. He was created to be a guardian of divine mysteries, a keeper of sacred knowledge. Satanael was given the job of leading worship. He was like a cosmic orchestra conductor, making sure all the spiritual beings sang in harmony. His voice was so beautiful that when he sang, even the stars would pause to listen. But something happened to Satanael. Slowly, over time, he became more interested in his own beauty than in God's glory. He started to think, why am I serving? I'm powerful, I'm beautiful, I'm wise. Why shouldn't I be worshipped? The Ethiopian Bible describes this as the first sin, not jealousy, not anger, but self-worship, loving the gift instead of the giver, wanting to be the center instead of pointing to the center. And here's what makes this story so powerful. Satanael didn't immediately become evil. He didn't suddenly turn into a monster. The fall was gradual. One small choice to focus on himself, then another, until finally, he couldn't hear God's voice anymore over the sound of his own ego. When Satanael fell, he didn't fall alone. The Ethiopian texts say that 1/3 of all the spiritual beings in heaven fell with him. That's millions, maybe billions of conscious spirits who chose pride over purpose. But here's the really important part. When they fell, they didn't just disappear. They didn't cease to exist. Instead, they were cast out of the higher heavens into the lower realms, into the space between heaven and earth. And they became something else, something twisted. They went from beings of light to beings of shadow, from worshippers to accusers, from guardians to destroyers. The Ethiopian Bible calls this the first fall. It happened before Adam, before the garden, before anything in Genesis. And it's this first fall that sets up everything else that happens in the Bible. Because when God decides to create again, to make a physical universe with matter and time and humans, He's not starting fresh. He's creating in a world that already has rebels in it, already has fallen beings waiting and watching. That's why the serpent is already in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve arrive. He didn't just show up. He was already there, waiting. Because the battle between light and darkness didn't start with humanity. We walked into a war that was already raging. This completely changes how we understand the story. Adam and Eve weren't the first beings to face temptation. They weren't the first to have to choose between following God or following themselves. They were just the first humans to face that choice. And here's the controversial thought. If God knew that creating beings with free will would lead to rebellion, why did He do it? Why not just create beings who automatically love Him, who can't choose evil? The Ethiopian understanding is beautiful. Love that isn't chosen isn't real love. It's just programming. God wanted real relationships, not robotic worship. And real relationships require real freedom, even if that freedom means some will choose wrong. But that doesn't answer another mystery. If the first creation fell, if those spiritual beings became corrupted, why did God try again with humans? Why make physical beings who are even weaker, even more limited than the angels? What is it about humanity that makes us special? Why did God think we could succeed where angels failed? The answer is coming. But first, let me ask you something. If you're finding this fascinating, would you take 2 seconds to leave a comment? Just tell me what's the most surprising thing you've learned so far. I read every comment, and your thoughts help shape future videos. Also, coming up next is one of the most beautiful parts of the Ethiopian Bible. We're going to talk about the angels who stayed loyal, the watchers who guard heaven's secrets even now. And one of them took Enoch on a journey that revealed the structure of all reality. Get comfortable, because we're about to tour the 7 heavens. Chapter 4. The angels who watched over ancient secrets. In the Ethiopian Bible, angels aren't just background characters. They're not just messengers who occasionally show up with announcements. They're complex beings with names, personalities, jobs, and even emotions. The Book of Enoch describes them in incredible detail, and what it reveals is that heaven has an entire organizational structure. Different levels, different roles, different types of angels doing different things. At the top are the seraphim. These are the angels closest to God's throne. They're described as beings made of living fire. Not fire that burns things up, but fire that purifies. Fire that makes things more beautiful instead of destroying them. The seraphim have 6 wings each. 2 wings cover their faces because even they can't look directly at God's full glory. 2 wings cover their feet in humility, and 2 wings they use to fly. They sing constantly, day and night, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." But here's what's interesting. The Ethiopian texts suggest that this singing isn't just worship. It's actually holding creation together. Their voices create a vibration, a frequency that keeps the spiritual and physical realms connected. If they stopped singing, reality itself might unravel. Below the seraphim are the cherubim. You might picture cute baby angels with harps. That's not what cherubim are, not even close. The Book of Enoch describes them as having 4 faces: a human face in front, a lion face on the right, an ox face on the left, an eagle face in back. Why 4 faces? Each face represents a different aspect of creation. The human face represents intelligence and choice. The lion represents wild strength and courage. The ox represents service and steady work. The eagle represents spiritual vision and freedom. The cherubim are the guardians. After Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, God placed cherubim with flaming swords at the entrance, not to punish, but to protect. Because in their fallen state, if Adam and Eve had eaten from the tree of life, they would have been stuck in their brokenness forever. The cherubim were guarding them from a worse fate. Then there are the watchers. This is where things get really interesting. The watchers were a special class of angels assigned to observe Earth and humanity. Their job was to watch, record, and occasionally guide human affairs. The Book of Enoch names many of these watchers: Semjaza, the leader; Azazel, who taught weapon making; Barakel, who taught astrology; Kokabiel, who taught the constellations. Each had a specific area of knowledge and a specific job. But as we mentioned before, some of the watchers broke their oath. They didn't just watch anymore. They got involved. They came down to earth, took human wives, and had children. The Nephilim, the giants. What's fascinating is that the Ethiopian Bible treats this as one of the greatest tragedies in history. These angels had perfect knowledge. They knew exactly what they were doing and what the consequences would be. and they did it anyway. Why? The text suggests it was a kind of loneliness. Angels are immortal. They don't grow, change, or experience time the way humans do. When the Watchers saw humans falling in love, having children, building lives together, they wanted to experience that too. But they were never designed for it. Spiritual beings trying to live physical lives. It's like trying to pour an ocean into a cup. It doesn't fit. It overflows. It destroys. The children of these unions, the Nephilim, were described as enormous. Some texts say they were 300 cubits tall. That's about 450 feet, the height of a 45-story building. Whether that's literal or symbolic, the point is clear. These beings were too much, too powerful, too hungry, too destructive. The world couldn't sustain them, and that's what led to the flood. God wasn't destroying humanity because people were bad. He was hitting reset because the natural order had been completely corrupted. Physical and spiritual had mixed in a way that was never meant to happen. But not all the Watchers fell. The Ethiopian Bible emphasizes this. Most of the Watchers stayed loyal. They continued their jobs, observing and recording, without interference. And some of them were given special tasks. The archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. In the Ethiopian tradition, there are 7 archangels, each one responsible for a different aspect of creation and human life. Michael is the warrior, the protector. When spiritual battles need to be fought, Michael is the one who fights them. He's described as leading armies of loyal angels against the forces of darkness. Gabriel is the messenger. Every major announcement in the Bible comes through Gabriel. He told Mary she would give birth to Jesus. He gave Daniel understanding of his visions. Gabriel speaks for God when words need to be delivered clearly. Raphael is the healer. His name means God heals. In the book of Enoch, Raphael is sent to bind Azazel, one of the fallen Watchers, and to heal the earth from the damage the Nephilim caused. He represents God's power to restore what was broken. Uriel is the one who lights the way. His name means God is my light. Uriel is described as the angel who guards the gates of Eden and who will lead the way during the final judgment. He represents divine truth and illumination. These archangels appear throughout the Ethiopian Bible, guiding prophets, protecting God's people, and fighting spiritual battles that humans can't even see. And here's something beautiful. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church believes that these angels are still active today, still watching, still protecting, still fighting battles in the spiritual realm while we sleep, work, and live our daily lives. They pray to Michael for protection, to Gabriel for clear communication, to Raphael for healing, to Uriel for wisdom, not worshipping the angels, but asking them to do what God created them to do, help humanity. One of the most amazing stories in the book of Enoch is when the angels take Enoch on a tour of the 7 heavens. He gets to see things that no other human has seen, the structure of reality itself. In the first heaven, Enoch sees the clouds, the dew, the winds, all being controlled by angels. Weather isn't random, it's managed. In the second heaven, Enoch sees the fallen angels being held in darkness, waiting for judgment. They're not tormenting anyone yet. They're prisoners themselves, locked away until the final day. In the third heaven, Enoch describes a paradise, a place of incredible beauty where the righteous go after death, rivers of milk and honey, trees that never stop bearing fruit, no pain, no sorrow, only peace. The fourth heaven is where the sun and moon are kept when they're not in the sky. Like a garage for celestial bodies, Enoch describes it as a place of constant motion and light. The fifth heaven is darker. It's where the angels who fell but didn't come to earth are kept. They're confused, lost, waiting. Some beg Enoch to pray for them. The sixth heaven is where the angels study. It's described as a vast library where the records of every life, every choice, every moment is stored. 7 angels constantly write, recording everything that happens in all of creation. And the seventh heaven. The seventh heaven is where God's throne sits. Enoch can't even describe it properly. He uses words like fire, light, glory, but then says these words don't capture even a tiny fraction of what he saw. He just falls down, unable to speak, unable to think, overwhelmed by the presence of the divine. The Ethiopian Bible preserves all of this. These aren't just myths or legends to them. These are spiritual truths, carefully guarded, passed down through generations. If this is opening your mind to a bigger universe than you imagined, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. There's so much more to explore together. Ancient texts, hidden knowledge, stories that will change how you see everything. And speaking of seeing things differently, we still haven't answered the biggest mystery yet. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." But the sun wasn't created until day 4. So what was that first light? What was shining before the stars existed? In the next chapter, we're diving into one of the most beautiful and mysterious concepts in the Ethiopian Bible, the light that came before everything else. The light that might be closer to you than you think. Chapter 5. The light that existed before the sun. Let's talk about day 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Most people read that and picture God flipping a cosmic light switch. The universe goes from dark to bright. But then you keep reading. The sun isn't created until day 4, 3 days later. So what was the light on day 1? What was shining before the sun existed? The Ethiopian Bible has an answer, and it's beautiful. According to their ancient understanding, the first light wasn't physical. It wasn't photons bouncing off objects. It was something much more profound. It was the light of consciousness, the light of God's presence, the light of pure awareness before anything physical existed to reflect it. Think of it this way. When you close your eyes in a dark room, can you still sense your own existence? Can you still feel aware, conscious, present? That inner awareness, that sense of I am, that's closer to what the first light was. The Book of Jubilees describes this first light as having consciousness. It wasn't just energy, it was alive. It could respond to God's will. It separated the spiritual from the physical. It marked the beginning of time itself. Some Ethiopian scholars call it the uncreated light. Light that didn't come from a source because it is the source. Light that existed within God before creation and then was released, poured out, to make space for everything else to exist. Here's where it gets really profound. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church teaches that this original light never went away. It was hidden, but not destroyed. It exists in a realm beyond the physical. And certain people, holy people, prophets, saints, can sometimes glimpse it. They have a tradition called the Transfiguration of Light. It's based on the story in the Gospels where Jesus took Peter, James, and John up a mountain. There, Jesus was transformed. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became as white as light. Moses and Elijah appeared and talked with him. The Ethiopian understanding is that Jesus didn't gain something new in that moment. He revealed what was always there. He pulled back the veil of flesh for just a moment and showed his true nature. He was showing them the original light, the light from day one, the light he had been carrying inside him all along. And here's the most amazing part. The Ethiopian Bible suggests that this light is inside every human too, buried deep, covered by layers of physical matter, hidden under the weight of sin and time, but still there, still glowing, still waiting to be rediscovered. In the book of Enoch, when Enoch is taken to the seven heavens, he's transformed. His earthly body can't survive in those realms, so the angels clothe him in garments of light. They give him back, temporarily, what Adam lost in the fall. According to the Ethiopian texts, Adam was originally clothed in light, not physical clothes. Light itself covered him. That's what it means when Genesis says Adam and Eve were naked but not ashamed. They weren't seeing physical bodies. They were seeing spiritual glory. Light reflected light. There was nothing to be ashamed of. But when they sinned, when they chose to disobey, that light withdrew, and for the first time, they saw their physical bodies, flesh, fragile, temporary. And they felt ashamed because they had lost something infinitely more valuable. They had lost the original light. The entire story of the Bible, according to the Ethiopian understanding, is about getting that light back. It's about humans being restored to their original glory, being reclothed in the light of day one. Jesus talked about this. He said, "You are the light of the world." Not, "You should try to be," or "You might become." He said, "You are." Present tense. The light is already in you. You've just forgotten it's there. The Ethiopian monks spend their lives trying to remember. They fast, pray, and meditate in darkness, trying to see the inner light. And many of them report experiences of seeing it. A warm glow that starts in the center of the chest and slowly spreads. Not hot, not cold, just present, real, alive. There are stories of Ethiopian saints whose bodies glowed when they prayed. Not metaphorically, literally. People could see light coming from their faces, their hands. The physical world couldn't contain the spiritual reality pressing through. Now you might be thinking, this sounds mystical. How do we know it's real? Fair question. Here's what's interesting. Across different religions and spiritual traditions, people describe the same thing. Buddhist monks talk about clear light. Hindu mystics describe the inner light of Atman. Sufi poets write about the divine light within the heart. Jewish Kabbalah teaches about the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Are all these traditions just making up the same story? Or are they all describing the same reality from different angles? The same light that existed on day one, before the sun, before the stars, still accessible to those who know how to look for it. The Ethiopian Bible doesn't just preserve the story of this light. It preserves practices for reconnecting with it. Prayers in ancient languages. Fasting rituals that quiet the physical body so the spiritual body can be felt. Hymns that use specific frequencies designed to resonate with the original vibration of creation. These aren't superstitions. These are technologies. spiritual technologies passed down through thousands of years, designed to help humans remember what they are. Not just bodies, not just minds, but beings of light temporarily living in physical form. And that light has a purpose. It's not just for personal enlightenment. It's not just to make you feel good. According to the Ethiopian understanding, when enough people reconnect with their inner light, something amazing happens. The lights start to connect, to network, to create a web of conscious awareness that can transform the whole world. That's what Jesus meant when he said, "Let your light shine before others." Not be a good example, but literally, let the light that's in you become visible. Live in such a way that people can sense the glow, the warmth, the presence of something beyond the physical. This is getting deep, I know. If you need to drift off to sleep, that's perfect. Let these ideas settle into your subconscious. Let them work on you while you rest. But if you're still with me, if your mind is buzzing with questions, drop a comment. Tell me what you think about this idea of inner light. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? A moment of clarity or peace that seemed to come from beyond your normal consciousness? I love reading your thoughts, and your comments help the algorithm show this video to more people who are searching for these hidden truths. Coming up next, we're going back to Enoch's journey, because the seven heavens aren't just levels of space, they're levels of consciousness, and understanding them might be the key to understanding your own spiritual potential. Let's explore the heavens together. Chapter 6. Enoch's journey to the seven heavens. Enoch was the great-great-great-great-grandfather of Noah. According to Genesis, he lived 365 years. But then something strange happened. Instead of dying, Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Where did God take him? The book of Enoch gives us the full story, and it's one of the most incredible journeys in all of ancient literature. One day, while Enoch was alone, praying in the fields, he heard a voice, not from outside, from inside. A voice that said, "Enoch, scribe of righteousness, go tell the watchers who have left heaven that they will face judgment." Enoch was confused. He was just a man. How was he supposed to deliver a message to angels? But before he could respond, the sky opened. Two angels appeared, glowing so bright he had to shield his eyes. They told him to come with them. There was something he needed to see. The angels took Enoch up, not in a spaceship, not flying with wings. The text describes it as being lifted by a wind, a force that moved him without touching him. He rose above the clouds, above the sky, into realms that human eyes normally can't see. The first heaven was filled with activity. Enoch saw angels managing the weather. Some were in charge of rain, others controlled snow, others directed the winds. It was like watching the control room of reality. Everything that seemed random on Earth, storms, droughts, perfect sunny days, was actually being carefully managed by spiritual beings following divine orders. Enoch also saw storehouses, giant chambers where hail was kept until it was needed, vaults where lightning was stored. He asked the angels, "Why do you store these things?" They answered, "For the day of judgment, for the day when the wicked will face the consequences of their choices." In the second heaven, things got darker. Enoch saw the fallen watchers, not the ones who came to earth, but others who had rebelled in smaller ways. They were suspended in darkness, not quite in hell, but not in heaven either. They were waiting. And when they saw Enoch, they begged him to pray for them. Enoch felt compassion. These were beings who had made terrible choices, but they weren't monsters. They were regretful, lost, confused. He asked God if he should pray for them. The answer was no. Their judgment was sealed. There comes a point where choices become permanent. That's a sobering thought. The Ethiopian Bible doesn't teach that everyone gets infinite chances. There's mercy, yes, but there's also justice. And sometimes justice means accepting the consequences you chose. The third heaven was completely different. Enoch describes it as paradise, a place of such beauty that he struggled to find words, rivers that sparkled with colors that don't exist on earth, trees that bore 12 different kinds of fruit, one for each month. The air itself seemed to sing. This, the angels told him, is where the righteous go when they die. Not the final destination, but a waiting place. A place of rest and peace, while the physical world continues its journey toward the final day. Enoch met people there, saints, prophets, ordinary people who had lived faithfully and were now experiencing the reward. They weren't bored. They weren't sitting on clouds playing harps. They were learning, growing, preparing for what comes next. The fourth heaven was strange. Enoch saw the sun and the moon, but not as we see them. He saw them as living creatures, beings of light following precise paths, singing as they moved. The sun wasn't just a ball of gas. It was conscious, aware, praising God with every rotation. He also saw the stars, and the angels explained that every star has a name. Every star has a purpose. They're not randomly scattered. They're placed exactly where they need to be to create the perfect conditions for life. The universe isn't chaos, it's a symphony. The fifth heaven was the most disturbing. This is where the fallen angels who came to earth were imprisoned. Not the spirits still loose in the world, but the original 200 watchers who started the rebellion. They were bound in chains of darkness, unable to move, unable to communicate, just waiting for the final judgment. Enoch saw their leader, Semjaza, who once stood in the presence of God. Now he was a shadow of his former self. When he saw Enoch, he didn't beg or threaten. He just wept, silent tears falling into endless darkness. The saddest thing in all creation, beauty that destroyed itself through pride. The sixth heaven was calmer. This is where the angels study, where they learn about God's plans, where they read the books of destiny. Enoch saw 7 angels constantly writing, recording every word, every action, every thought of every living being. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is unseen. Every moment matters. One of the angels showed Enoch a book with his own name on it. He opened it and saw his entire life, everything he'd done, everything he would do, all written before he was born. He asked, "If it's already written, do I have a choice?" The angel smiled and said, "The book shows all possible paths. You choose which page becomes real." That's free will. Not the absence of knowledge, but the presence of infinite possibility. God knows all the choices you could make, but you're the one who decides which choice you actually make. Finally, the seventh heaven. This is the one Enoch struggled most to describe. He saw things that language can't capture. A throne that wasn't a chair, but a vortex of living light. Creatures that weren't beings, but pure vibrations. Music that wasn't sound, but direct communication between spirits. He tried to look at God's face but couldn't. Not because God was hiding, but because the glory was too much. Like trying to stare at the sun. You can sense its presence. You can feel its warmth. But looking directly at it would overwhelm your capacity to perceive. The beings around the throne sang constantly, not because they had to, but because not singing was impossible. How do you stay silent in the presence of infinite love? How do you not respond to perfect beauty? Their song was automatic, natural, the only response that made sense. And in that moment, Enoch understood something profound. The whole point of creation, the reason for everything. God wasn't lonely. God didn't need anything. But love, by its nature, gives. It creates. It shares. God made all of this, all the heavens, all the earth, all of humanity, not to serve him, but to experience the joy of giving, the joy of sharing existence with others, the joy of love that flows out freely. We weren't created because God needed us. We were created because God wanted us to experience the joy that he experiences, to know what it feels like to be loved perfectly, to love others imperfectly but genuinely, to be part of something infinitely larger than ourselves. That's the message Enoch brought back from the seven heavens. That's what he wrote in his book. And that's why it was so important that the Ethiopian Church preserved it. Because this isn't just ancient history. This is your story too. You're not an accident. You're not random. You're not just a biological machine that happens to be conscious. You're part of a cosmic plan that stretches from before time into eternity. You have a place, a purpose, a path through the seven heavens if you choose to walk it. If that resonates with you, share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear that they matter, that their life has meaning beyond what they can see. And stick around, because we're not done yet. We still need to talk about the fall, not Adam's fall, the bigger fall, the one that cracked the foundation of reality itself. Coming up next, the day heaven wept. Chapter 7, the fall that shook all creation. Imagine being in a place of perfect harmony, where every voice sings in tune, where every movement is graceful, where there's no conflict, no confusion, no pain, just perfect peace. Now imagine one voice, just one, singing the wrong note on purpose. Not a mistake, a choice. Everything stops, the harmony breaks, and suddenly there's a sound that was never supposed to exist. The sound of discord in paradise. That's what the fall of Satanael was like. As we discussed earlier, Satanael was the highest of the angels, the most beautiful, the most powerful, closest to God's throne. He led the worship of all creation. His voice was so perfect that when he sang, the stars would pause to listen. But something shifted inside him, slowly, gradually, so subtle that at first, even he might not have noticed. He started looking at himself instead of at God. He started noticing his own beauty, his own power, his own wisdom. And a thought crept in. A thought that should never have been thought. Why am I serving? I could be served. The Ethiopian Bible describes this as the birth of envy. Not envy of what others had, but envy of God himself. Satanael looked at God's authority, God's position as the center of all worship, and wanted it for himself. He didn't want to destroy God. He wanted to be God, to have his own throne, his own kingdom, his own followers who would worship him instead. But here's the thing, that desire is impossible. It's like a ray of sunlight trying to become the sun, like a wave trying to exist separately from the ocean. Satanael was created. By definition, he was dependent. The moment he tried to become independent, he started to fall apart. The Book of Enoch describes the moment Satanael made his choice. He was leading worship, as always. But instead of singing, "Holy is the Lord," he sang, "Holy am I." Just 2 words changed. But those 2 words altered everything. The other angels were confused. Some didn't notice at first. Others felt something was wrong but didn't know what. But a few, those closest to Satanael, heard clearly, and they had to make a choice. Stand with God or stand with Satanael. About 1/3 of the angels chose Satanael. Not because they hated God, but because they loved Satanael. They admired him. They had served under him for eons, and when he declared independence, they followed. The Ethiopian Bible says that Michael, the archangel, was the first to respond. He stood up and said, "Who is like God?" That's what the name Michael means. Who is like God? It's both a question and a statement. No one is like God. Trying to be is insane. And then the war began. Not with swords and shields, but with wills, with choices. Spiritual forces pulling against each other, tearing at the fabric of creation. The fallen angels didn't lose because they were weaker. They lost because they were fighting against reality itself. Trying to separate from God isn't like breaking free from a prison. It's like trying to breathe without air. You can try, but it's only a matter of time before you suffocate. Satanael and his followers were cast out, not destroyed, not annihilated, but removed from the presence of God, exiled to the lower heavens, to the space between the spiritual and physical realms. And that's when something terrible happened. They changed. Without the light of God's presence, their beauty started to fade. Their glory turned to shadow. Their wisdom twisted into cunning. They didn't become monsters immediately, but they began the process, a slow decay that continues even now. The Ethiopian Bible teaches that Satanael's name was changed. He was no longer the secret of God. He became Satan, the adversary, the accuser, the one who opposes. But here's what's fascinating. Even in his fallen state, Satan retained much of his knowledge. He still understood how creation worked. He still knew the secrets of the spiritual realm. He just couldn't use them the way he was supposed to anymore. And when God created Adam, placed him in the garden, and gave him authority over the earth, Satan saw an opportunity. He couldn't attack God directly. He'd tried that and failed. But maybe he could corrupt God's newest creation. Maybe he could prove that creatures with free will would always choose wrong. That the whole project of creation was doomed to fail. So he waited, watched, studied, and when the moment was right, he appeared to Eve as a serpent. Not because he was a snake, but because he took the form of the most subtle, crafty creature in the garden. He could have appeared as anything. He chose the form that could whisper doubts most effectively. Did God really say you would die? He's just trying to keep you from becoming like him. He's afraid you'll have what he has. The same lie that Satanael believed, he passed to Eve. You can be independent. You can be your own God. You don't need to obey. And Eve, then Adam, made the same choice that 1/3 of the angels made. They chose self over source, independence over relationship, pride over trust. And just like the angels, they fell. Not from heaven, because they were already on earth, but they fell from their original state, from beings clothed in light to beings clothed in flesh, from immortal to mortal. from direct communion with God to being cut off, exiled, wandering. The Ethiopian Bible emphasizes that Adam's fall wasn't just about eating fruit. It was about trying to access divine knowledge the wrong way. God would have given them that knowledge eventually, but they wanted it now, on their terms, without waiting, without permission. It's like a child trying to drive a car. The parent isn't keeping the car keys to be mean. They're keeping them because the child isn't ready yet. Give it time, and the child will be old enough to drive safely. But grab the keys too early, and disaster happens. Adam and Eve grabbed the keys too early, and the crash echoed through all of creation. But here's the beautiful part. The story doesn't end with the fall. God didn't give up. He didn't scrap the whole project and start over. Instead, he began a plan of restoration, a plan to undo the fall, to bring humanity back to its original glory, to reclothe us in the light we lost. That plan would take thousands of years. It would involve prophets, miracles, laws, sacrifices, and ultimately, God himself becoming human, all to fix what was broken in the garden. The Ethiopian Bible preserves this whole story, not just the ending, but the middle parts, the struggles, the setbacks, the small victories, the slow, patient work of redemption. And you're part of that story, right now, today. You're living in the chapter where humans are being offered the chance to reverse the fall, to choose connection over independence, light over shadow, love over pride. Every day, you face the same choice Adam faced, the same choice the angels faced. Will you trust God's plan or try to make your own? Will you wait for the right time or grab what you want now? These aren't easy choices, and nobody gets them right all the time. But the Ethiopian wisdom teaches that every choice matters. Every moment is a chance to move toward the light or away from it. If you're still listening, you're doing something most people don't do. You're thinking about big questions. Questions about purpose, about meaning, about where you fit in a story much larger than yourself. That's valuable. That matters. Don't let anyone tell you that these questions are a waste of time. And if you want to explore more of these hidden truths, subscribe to this channel. We're just getting started. There are so many more mysteries to uncover. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the people who kept these stories alive. The Ethiopian monks and priests who faced persecution, poverty, and isolation to preserve the truth. Their story is just as amazing as the ancient texts they protected. Chapter 8. Ethiopia's Sacred Guardians of Truth. Ethiopia is different from almost any other place on earth. It's one of the oldest continuous Christian nations in the world. While Europe was still pagan, while Christianity was being persecuted in Rome, Ethiopia had already accepted the gospel. According to their tradition, it started with a man named Frumentius. In the 4th century, he was shipwrecked on the coast of Ethiopia. Instead of being killed or enslaved, he was brought to the royal court. His wisdom and kindness impressed everyone. Eventually, he became the tutor to the young prince. When that prince grew up and became king, Frumentius told him about Jesus, about the light that came into the world, about the path of restoration. The king believed, and he declared that his whole kingdom would follow this new faith. But Ethiopia didn't just copy the Christianity they learned from visitors. They made it their own. They combined it with their ancient wisdom, with their understanding of the spiritual realm, with the books they had preserved from Jewish scholars who had fled to Ethiopia centuries before. That's how they ended up with 81 books in their Bible. They never threw anything away. They collected everything, every scroll, every text, every letter. If it was ancient and talked about God, they kept it. When the Council of Nicaea happened in 325 AD, where church leaders from across the Christian world gathered to decide which books were official, Ethiopia wasn't fully represented. They were too far away, too isolated by mountains and deserts. So when the council decided to exclude books like Enoch and Jubilees, Ethiopia just shrugged and kept them anyway. "These books have been sacred to us for generations," they said. "We're not removing them because some council in a foreign land says so." That decision, to trust their own spiritual heritage over outside authority, is what preserved these texts for the rest of us. If Ethiopia had thrown away those books, we wouldn't have them today. They would be completely lost. The Ethiopian monks took this responsibility seriously, incredibly seriously. They copied the text by hand, generation after generation. They built monasteries in remote locations, high in the mountains, where invaders couldn't reach. They created secret hiding places for the most precious manuscripts. There are stories of monks who died protecting these books. When Muslim armies invaded in the 16th century, trying to force Ethiopia to convert to Islam, many monasteries were attacked. The monks had a choice: save themselves or save the books. Many chose the books. They died in the flames, clutching manuscripts to their chests, making sure the knowledge wouldn't be lost. Why such dedication? Because they believed these weren't just books. These were keys. Keys to understanding the nature of reality. Keys to connecting with God. Keys to humanity's restoration. One of the most famous centers of Ethiopian Christianity is Lalibela. It's a town with 11 churches carved directly into solid rock, not built with stone blocks. Carved down from the top, hollowing out the rock to create entire buildings. The local legend says that angels helped with the construction, that the work was done in 24 years, which would have been impossible for humans alone. Whether that's literally true or not, the churches themselves are miraculous. Walking into them feels like walking into ancient times. Inside these churches, the priests still use the old liturgy. They sing in Ge'ez, the ancient language. They use instruments that haven't changed in 2,000 years. They fast according to the old calendar. They keep the old ways alive. And they still study the book of Enoch, the book of Jubilees, all the texts that the rest of the Christian world forgot. But it's not just about preserving old books. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church believes that the spiritual practices described in those books still work, that you can still access the light, still connect with angels, still walk the path that Enoch walked. They have monks who spend years in solitary prayer, living in caves, eating once a day, spending hours in silence, trying to quiet the noise of the physical world so they can hear the spiritual one. And many of these monks report experiences that match what's described in the ancient texts. Visions of light, encounters with angels, moments of clarity where the veil between heaven and earth becomes thin. Are they making it up? Are they hallucinating from fasting and isolation? Maybe. Or maybe they're accessing something real, something that the rest of us have forgotten how to reach. The Ethiopian understanding is that these aren't superpowers. These aren't special abilities for a chosen few. They're natural human capacities that we've lost, like a muscle that atrophies when you don't use it. Everyone has the ability to connect with the divine. Everyone has inner light. Everyone can access higher states of consciousness, but it takes practice, discipline, patience, and most importantly, it takes wanting it more than you want the distractions of the modern world. That's the real challenge, isn't it? We live in a world of constant noise, phones buzzing, notifications pinging, entertainment streaming. We're never bored, never quiet, never still. The Ethiopian monks would say that's by design, that the forces that fell, the ones who lost the light, don't want humans to rediscover their spiritual nature. So they've created a world of endless distraction. Keep people busy, keep them entertained, keep them from ever sitting in silence long enough to realize there's something more. But you don't have to become a monk to start reclaiming that connection. You can start small. 5 minutes of silence. No phone. No music. Just breathing. Just existing. At first it feels uncomfortable, boring. Your mind races. But if you stick with it, something interesting happens. The noise starts to settle. And underneath the noise, there's something else. A quiet presence. A sense of peace that doesn't come from external circumstances. That's the beginning. The first glimpse of the inner light. The start of the journey back to what you were always meant to be. The Ethiopian Church has kept this path open for us. They've guarded the maps, preserved the instructions, maintained the practices. Now it's up to us whether we use them. If this is inspiring you, if you're feeling drawn to explore these ancient practices, let me know in the comments. What's one small change you could make today to create more silence in your life? And make sure you're subscribed, because we're about to bring this whole journey together. We've talked about the Ethiopian Bible, about the hidden books, about creation before creation, about angels and falls and light. Now we need to talk about what it all means for you, personally, today, in the life you're actually living. Coming up, the most important chapter of all, what this means for your soul. Chapter 9, what this means for your soul. Today, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. Ancient texts, hidden histories, cosmic battles, 7 heavens, fallen angels, light before the sun. But all of that is just information if it doesn't connect to your actual life. So let's bring it home. Let's make it personal. Here's the core message of the Ethiopian Bible. Underneath all the stories and mysteries, you are not what you think you are. You look in the mirror and see a body, flesh, skin, hair, eyes, and you think, that's me, that's all I am. But according to these ancient texts, that's like looking at a flashlight and saying, that's just metal and plastic, while missing the light shining from it. The body is the flashlight. You are the light. The Ethiopian understanding is that every human being is a spiritual being having a temporary physical experience. Your body is real. Your physical life matters. But it's not the whole story. It's not even the main story. The main story is about your soul, about that spark of original light that's buried inside you, about the part of you that existed before you were born and will exist after you die. And that soul is on a journey. It's not just floating through life randomly. It's working its way back to the source, back to the light, back to the place where it belongs. Every experience you have, good or bad, is part of that journey. Every relationship, every challenge, every moment of joy and every moment of pain. They're all shaping you, refining you, teaching you something you need to know. The Ethiopian monks say that life on earth is like being in school. You're here to learn lessons, and you keep getting the same lessons over and over until you finally understand them. Maybe your lesson is about patience, so you keep finding yourself in situations that require waiting, stuck in traffic, waiting in lines, dealing with slow processes at work, and you get frustrated. Why does this keep happening to me? The universe is trying to teach you something, and it will keep presenting the lesson until you learn it. Or maybe your lesson is about forgiveness, so you keep encountering people who hurt you, betray you, let you down, and you get bitter. Why do I keep attracting toxic people? The universe is giving you opportunities to practice forgiveness, to let go, to stop carrying grudges. And when you finally learn that lesson, those people stop appearing in your life. The test is over. You passed. This is what the Ethiopian Bible teaches about the purpose of life. It's not about being comfortable. It's not about getting rich or famous or powerful. It's about spiritual growth, about becoming more like the being of light you were created to be. Adam and Eve fell because they wanted the easy path. They wanted divine knowledge without divine maturity. They wanted the destination without the journey. But there are no shortcuts. Not really. You can't skip the lessons. You can't hack your way to enlightenment. You have to walk the path, step by step, day by day. And here's the beautiful part. You're not walking alone. According to the Ethiopian tradition, everyone has angels assigned to them. Guardian angels. Not just one, multiple. They're with you right now as you listen to this. They're always with you, watching, protecting, guiding. They can't force you to make good choices. You have free will. But they can nudge, they can whisper, they can put opportunities in your path. They can protect you from dangers you never even know about. Have you ever had a moment where you felt a sudden urge to take a different route home, and later found out there was a terrible accident on your usual route? That was your angels. Have you ever thought of an old friend randomly, called them, and discovered they were going through a crisis and desperately needed someone to talk to? That was your angels connecting you. These aren't coincidences. The Ethiopian understanding is that there are no coincidences. Everything is connected. Everything has meaning. You're part of a vast spiritual web, and the angels are constantly working behind the scenes to help you fulfill your purpose. But you have to be paying attention. You have to be open. If you're so caught up in your own thoughts, your own plans, your own ego, you'll miss the guidance. You'll walk right past the opportunities. This is why the monks practice silence, why they fast, why they pray for hours. They're creating space, emptying themselves, making room for the divine to speak. You don't have to become a monk, but you can create small spaces. Turn off the TV for an hour, leave your phone in another room, sit in nature without headphones. Give yourself time to just be. In those quiet moments, you might be surprised what bubbles up. Insights, clarity, peace. Ideas that solve problems you've been wrestling with for months. All because you stopped trying to force solutions and allowed them to come to you. The Ethiopian Bible also teaches something crucial about suffering. Pain isn't punishment, it's refinement. Think of gold being purified. You put raw gold in fire. The heat causes all the impurities to rise to the surface. You skim them off. You heat it again. More impurities surface. You skim again. You repeat until the gold is pure. That's what life's challenges do. They reveal your impurities, your fears, your selfishness, your pride. And every time you face a challenge and choose love, truth, and courage, you skim off more impurities. You become more refined, more pure. This doesn't mean you should seek out suffering. That's not the point. But when suffering comes, as it inevitably does, you can choose to see it differently. Not as random bad luck, not as unfair punishment, but as part of your refinement, part of your journey back to the light. The Ethiopian monks have a saying, "The darkest nights produce the brightest stars." When you're in your darkest moment, when everything feels hopeless, that's often when you're closest to a breakthrough, closest to discovering a strength you didn't know you had, closest to experiencing grace in a way you never have before. So if you're going through something hard right now, hold on. Keep walking. Keep choosing love even when it's hard. Keep choosing honesty even when lies would be easier. Keep choosing hope even when despair seems more logical. You're being refined. And on the other side of this, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more filled with light than you were before. One more thing. The Ethiopian Bible emphasizes community. You're not supposed to walk this path alone. The early church didn't meet in fancy buildings. They met in homes, small groups of people sharing meals, sharing struggles, sharing faith. They knew each other deeply. They carried each other's burdens. They celebrated each other's victories. Somewhere along the way, church became about attending a service, sitting in rows, listening to someone speak, then going home without really connecting with anyone. That's not what it was supposed to be. Spiritual growth happens in relationships, in being known and knowing others, in letting people see your struggles and offering to help with theirs. Find your community. Maybe it's a church, maybe it's a small group, maybe it's just 2 or 3 friends who are willing to talk about deep things instead of just surface-level small talk. But find people who will walk this path with you, because the journey back to the light is long, and it's hard to keep walking if you're alone. If you've made it this far in the video, you're part of a community already. Everyone listening to this right now, we're all on this journey together. Different starting points, different challenges, but the same destination. Back to the light, back to who we were created to be. Leave a comment, introduce yourself, tell us where you're at on your journey, what you're struggling with, what you're celebrating. Let's connect, let's encourage each other, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's going through a dark time, someone who's questioning, someone who feels alone. Send them this gift of ancient wisdom. You might be the angel nudging them toward their next breakthrough. All right, we're almost at the end of our journey together. But there's one more thing I want to leave you with. The most important thing of all. Closing. Your journey continues. You've been listening for a while now. Maybe you're drifting off to sleep. Maybe you're wide awake, mind racing with new ideas. Either way, you've just experienced something that most people never do. You've encountered hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, truths that were preserved for thousands of years by people who gave their lives to protect them. The Ethiopian Bible isn't just a relic. It's not just history. It's a living invitation. An invitation to see yourself, your life, and your world differently. You are more than flesh and bone. You are light temporarily covered by matter. You are a spiritual being on a journey back to the source. And every moment, every choice, every breath is a step on that journey. The fall happened, both in heaven and on earth. But the fall isn't the end of the story. Restoration is possible. Return is possible. You can become who you were always meant to be. It starts with awareness, with paying attention, with creating space for the divine to speak, with choosing love over fear, truth over convenience, connection over isolation. It's not easy. It's not quick, but it's possible, and it's worth it. The monks in Ethiopia are still praying, still fasting, still guarding the ancient texts, still walking the path. They're holding space for all of us, keeping the door open, keeping the light burning. And now you know about it. Now you've heard the invitation. What you do with it is up to you. Will you keep walking the same path you've always walked? Or will you take a step toward the light? There's no pressure, no judgment. The door stays open. The invitation stands. Today, tomorrow, and every day after that. But if you're feeling a pull, a sense that there's more to life than what you've experienced so far, trust that feeling. That's your soul remembering. That's the original light inside you starting to wake up. Follow it. Feed it. Give it space to grow. And watch what happens. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for being open to these ancient mysteries. Thank you for being part of this community of seekers. If you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. We've got so many more mysteries to explore together. And if this video helped you in any way, if it gave you peace, insight, or hope, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm show this to more people who need it. Until next time, sleep well, dream deep, and remember, you are light, clothed in flesh, on a journey back home. The path is long, but you're not alone, and the destination is worth every step. Good night, and God bless.